All right, I think we're going here. All right, I just picked up a TLR Typhon, and as of now, I have not run any packs through this. This is brand new. I did want to make a video to showcase what I've done to it in preparation of its first run. I'm going to primarily keep this on road, so I went ahead and got these Hoons. These are 42 100s, 42 by 100s, silver compound. I got them from A-Main Hobbies. I think I got pretty much all of this stuff from A-Main Hobbies. And I think $419, $420 is a pretty fair price for this rig. So I think that's a pretty good deal. But the main reason why I like it is so that I can kind of put my own electronics in it. I'm not really a big fan of the Arrma stuff. So I went ahead and did my own route and went my own way. I picked up a Futaba T4 PM, and it's solid 4-channel radio, and there's a bunch of features that I will talk about with relation to this specific rig. One of which was pretty cool that I had no idea that the radio did, but when you couple it with this setup, which is what you see a lot on YouTube, it's the Mamba Monster X with a 2200 kV, and that is the censored 2200 kV setup. I'm running 4S the way this is laid out here, 2 Gens Ace 5000 milliamp hour 100C batteries. These are the race spec batteries, and they are in series. So I'm doing 4S Mamba Monster X 2200 kV Castle system that's censored. And I went ahead and I've never gotten one of these servos. I'm normally a Savix fan, but this is a it's a 155S ProTech servo. I've been really impressed. Apparently that servo is made in South Korea, and it's a fully machined case. They're pricey servos. I think they were 140 bucks, but I think they're well worth it due to the speed and the torque. This one I think is rated a little over 300 ounce-inch at 6 volts with a 0.08 second transit time, which is pretty incredible given that that's only 6 volts and I can run 7.4 through it. The BEC is programmed to run 6 volts, and Smart Sense is enabled. Found out there's also a feature on the controller when you plug it into your PC. It will let you know if your sensor cable becomes damaged and or disconnected from the back of the motor. But the way this setup is, when you run a Futaba radio through a Castle system, you have to turn the channel, throttle channel 2 to reverse to calibrate the controller. Otherwise it just won't work. It's actually like the first statement that they say in the magazine or in the flip book. So pretty much any Futaba radio, you have to reverse your throttle setting. And in this case, with this steering setup, you had to reverse the steering as well. So once you do that, then you calibrate the controller. And that's just a really simple process. But I was able to really dive into the Castle Link on the PC and change the parameters of the BC to 6 volts. LiPo cutoff's 3.2. I adjusted the brake and throttle curve, ran it censored. I had to reverse the rotation of the motor. If you're running censored, you can't change any of the wires. You have to reverse the rotation through the programming so it would go the right direction. And then I think the firmware this latest firmware is 3.8.2 or 3.82. Nonetheless, it's all set up. It's extremely smooth, and you know, for a censored system, you can really creep along. And the soft start feature is enabled, so it's kind of like a low initial power setting. The punch I moved to 40% just to test it out. I just want to do just a dry run and get everything worked in. I did take the center diff out, and I put 500,000 Traxxas 500,000 weight in the center, and put it all back together. I changed the back and thickened up the rear with you know, I noticed when I took the rear out, it was not filled completely to the level they show in the manual. I just added some 50,000 in the back to give it more of a locked feel. And again, I'm just experimenting at this point. I left the 7 that was in there. I left it in there, so it's kind of a cut between 50 and 7. We'll see how that works out. But again, there was nothing wrong with it. The way they put it together, it just didn't seem like it was filled to the line that it needed to be. So I just put a couple drops of the 50, and I think that worked. It really is smooth, and it's definitely a little bit different than the front in that it feels a little bit more locked. I know 50 is kind of crazy, but we're just gonna try it out. I changed the roll center based upon what I've been hearing on the internet. Small movements at a time. I just wanted to get it set up what I think is gonna work, and then just kind of go from there. But I use like a dry lubricant on all the moving parts. It's a wax lubricant for bicycles, and put it on all the moving pins, and it works on the gears as well, the Mod 1 gears. Steering rack, anything that moves or articulates, I made sure I put a couple drops on in the CV joints in the front and the dog bones in the back. It seems like it's a pretty solid built car. I mean, I don't have an EXB version of any of their vehicles, but this is it seems pretty solid. 5mm towers. I mean, the chassis is really nice. I put an RPM rear skid on the bottom. It's a really nice chassis. I put some green anodized nuts on the wicker bill and on the suspension pins in the back and the carriers on the top. And I had a few extra I put on the towers, and I put a HR steering linkage in the front here, and it's a 25 tooth spline. The Protec servos are 25 tooth spline, so that worked real good, and I was very impressed with that horn. That's a very nice unit right there. When I was setting up the radio, you know, I keep my endpoints low when I first started it up, so I wouldn't get any binding when I initialized the right and the left. And I set my max throw. It ended up being like half of what that servo will travel. It's like 55% right and left, or what my endpoints ended up being from lock to lock. So I start low and I creep up until I hit lock on left and lock on right. And then those are my new 100% marks. From there, you can change your dual rates. So 100% dual rate is lock to lock 55% movement. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but basically from there you can dial back. If you're doing speed runs, you could take your dual rates down to, I don't know, 60%, and then full movement translates to very little movement at the wheels. But what I did notice when I was setting up this radio is there is a menu on here, and I'm going to turn it on. There is a menu on here. I don't know how this is going to work here. that, so I haven't had a Futaba radio in a minute, so this was new to me. But if you go down to throttle, you can set the speed. So it's already a pretty quick servo. But you could also, so again, it's at 100% on the turn and on the return. You could chop that back. If you find your servo to be too fast, you could turn that down. But you could also slow down the rate at which it returns to center, which I thought was pretty cool because never really seen anything like that. And then you could do it on the throttle too. Not sure how that would work on an electric. I'm going to leave it at 100 on the throttle. I think that pertains more to nitro vehicles than electric. But I was just kind of interested in the steering because I think that might help with the feel of the vehicle. But the actual return to center, you could slow that down. You know, that might help some stability issues at doing high-speed runs too, so you're not overcorrecting. Again, until I run it will I know. But if we back out of here, okay, so we back out of here and we go down to reverse. Again, to initialize the speed controller, to calibrate it, that had to be in reverse. For all you Futaba owners, you probably already know that on Castle systems. And then, let's see, I lined up the sub trims to basically center my steering behind the scenes. And then my endpoint right and left is only 55% on the steering. So 55% is the new 100 lock to lock. And then from there, you go back and you have your dual rates, which you can change on this side trigger. It's at 100, but you could change that back down if you want smaller movement. But another thing that I did like and that I changed on the steering was the exponential. I don't know if that line's coming through in there, but there basically you could able to change the expo on the steering and the throttle and the brake in the radio, as well as the programming in the controller. Why is that important? Well, you might plug in your controller to your computer and get a nice curve on the throttle and on the brake. And you go out and run it, and it might be nice. It's not linear, it's not too smooth, you know, it's just right where you want it, but you want to fine tune it. Well, you could go ahead and fine tune it with the radio, almost like an overlay on top of the programming in the controller with regards to the expo. So if you get it a certain way on the controller, and you're not sure, you're just kind of shooting in the dark. Like I made a small throttle curve, just a really light. It's not linear. It's just a small bend in the throttle and in the brake, just so it's not really violent on and off throttle. If I need to sharpen that up, I can do it from the radio. If I need to dull it down, I can do it from the radio. If I need to dull it down a lot more, then I'll go back in the controller and make that curve a little bit more sweeping to where I can regain the smoothness of the throttle and or the brake, and then sharpen it up with the controller if I need to later. So it kind of works, it kind of piggybacks on one on the other, which is nice. I'm geared at a 20-50 tooth, and that's a hot racing pinion. It's a cutout pinion, so it's a lighter than a typical standard pinion. And hot racing stuff's pretty good. I also got their wheel caps for the wheels, so they turned out pretty good, and they capture the grub screw if that ever were to come out. But I don't think anything's coming loose on this. I went over the whole deal and made sure everything was snug. That servo, if anybody's interested, I mean, it's kind of hard because I got Savics in everything I own. My nitros, I got 2 Savics in everything I run. But those Protec servos are no joking around, and they have a tremendous amount of torque and speed. And this isn't even their top shelf one. They have like a 160 series that's it's $160 servo or something like that. But I went ahead and I got Deans on most of my batteries, so I went ahead and soldered some high temp Deans connectors on all my gear. I've never had any issues with it. And again, it's not like I'm running crazy. I'll probably only run 4S on this setup, given the 20-tooth pinion, but you know, for a sub 8-pound vehicle, that's really no sweat. I'm not even gonna run a fan on the motor. I don't even think it needs it. I'd entertain a 5-cell battery, a single 5-cell lithium, and run it straight to the controller. I might do that. But again, I'm just a kind of a basher at this point. But I got some Badlands MX 3.8, or no, they're not 3.8s. They're just 8 scale buggy Badlands tires. But let's see. Yeah, it's pretty well built. I'm more of a nitro fan than anything, but I'll tell you what, this, you know, I don't know. I think it turned out to be a pretty good car. I'm gonna break in the diffs. I put it on the stand and just ran it real slow, just to kind of work in, and held one wheel, let it transfer power, just kind of work the thing in a little bit. But I'm gonna take it out tomorrow and run it and see if I can get the steering and throttle just kind of dialed in to make it, you know, not so abrupt, or just make it drivable. I want it drivable, and I think if you want to drift with it, even as short as wheelbase as it is, it's very possible to do that if the radio and the controller are set right, and the steering is set up right. So I'm looking forward to that. But it's turned out to be a pretty good rig, and I'm gonna try to post some run videos real soon. So